Welcome to KidMissing TV. Welcome to KidMissing TV. We're back to our regular episodes. This is episode number 16. We're going to venture into the 1970s today. But before we do that, I have a new segment, Local Crime History. So often we think of these things that I talk about happening in big cities. Well, we have some pretty interesting crime history right in the local area. I want to start out with one that some of the older residents might remember, from Douglas, February 23rd, 1985. Joseph Perkins, who had moved to Douglas to his grandparents' home with his mother shortly before that date, was a 15-year-old boy who shot his mother and both of his grandparents to death right here in Douglas. He was arraigned, of course, in Uxbridge District Court. The district attorney at the time wanted him charged as an adult. They would not do it. So he was placed in a juvenile facility and released. First, he went to a care facility out of state, and then he was released. His name was changed, and he's living somewhere out of state. His sister has stated that she was terrified of him. I can understand that. I would be too if he killed my whole Fandangle family. So that's something that happened right here. I remember this clear as day. I was 10 and a half at the time. And like I said, I remember it clear as day because it was pretty scary. So let's move on and talk about and we'll be doing lots more of those in the future. Thank you. Our first case is that of Sherry Lee Truesdale. She disappeared from Winston-Salem, North Carolina on June 13th, 1970. She was 14 years old at the time. She went downtown to catch a bus. She was going to buy supplies for a summer art program that she had won a scholarship to. She also was going to the Rayless department store to pay her mother's charge bill. That was the last place that she was seen. She was African American. Her DNA is available. She was only 4 feet 2 inches tall and weighed 75 pounds. She was tiny. I also was very small at that age. It's very easy for a predator to think that you are younger than your stated age. Put you at a little more risk. If you have any information about this case, since there are so few clues, please call 336-773-7848. That is the Winston-Salem Police Department. Dorothy D.E.E. Schofield was 12 years old when she disappeared on July 22nd, 1976, from Ocala, Florida. Her and her mother went to the Highway Patrol Station, which also housed a DMV, to renew her mother's driver's license. It was across the street from a shopping center. Dorothy asked if she could go return her sandals. Her mother allowed her to do so. She also was seen buying a soda for $1. And she was seen after she left the store by 2 different people. A lady saw her, or someone who looked like her, get into a gray panel van in the parking lot. And a lady, a clerk at a nearby store in the shopping center, saw her come into her store to buy a soda with a $1 bill. These 2 leads that I just gave you are the best leads in the case, but are still as yet unconfirmed. Because you can never completely confirm a lead unless it's someone that knows the person. Dorothy's family was looking into the possibility that Louis Lent was a suspect in their daughter's case. We talked about Louis Lent a little bit when we talked about the case of Sarah Pryor. Louis Lent's a bad dude. But when police looked into it, they found that he was in jail in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, at the time of Dorothy's disappearance. So that lead went south, basically, which would have been a really good lead. One distinguishing characteristic of Dorothy's is that she wears eyeglasses with gold-colored teardrop-shaped frames. If you have any information, please call Detective Mike Belkin at 1-352-629-8508. Tracy Lynn Davenport disappeared on April 27, 1973 from San Rafael, California. She was 6 years old. It was about 11 o'clock in the morning. She was walking to her kindergarten class from the motel room where she was living with her grandmother and other family members because her parents had separated. She never made it to school and obviously never made it home. So police officers, explorers, scouts, a Coast Guard helicopter, and all sorts of other people searched in vain for the little girl. Her parents offered a $500 reward, and a newspaper called the Independent Journal offered another $1,000. These rewards garnered no new leads. About 2 years ago, two retired San Rafael policemen who were just very young officers when this happened decided to take a look at the case on their own. And the one loose end was the pool at the hotel, which many thought had been filled in. It had actually been covered with flooring, but it actually happened before she was there. So, but they still drilled into a crawl space. They dug in. They got as far as they could, put a camera in. The little girl was not there. They found some wood and some safety glass down in there for whatever reason. So they were able, as they said, to put that rumor to rest. You know, rumors like that go around towns when somebody's missing or somebody did something, or, you know, rumors that aren't necessarily fact go around and become fact. They become lore. And that's kind of what happened here. The case is still an active investigation. Her grandmother still lives right in the area. Her mother still lives in the area. And so does her aunt. Her aunt said her family is grateful for the efforts of Officers Costa and Miller, who were the officers that took over. It was not initially, I guess, done very well. A lot of things were missing from the investigation, no pun intended. And as they said, it was a crude investigation because of the procedures. Procedures were crude because of the time period. I mean, we're talking about 1973. So they didn't have the same ability that they do today. I think this case is definitely solvable. If you have any information in this case, you can call the San Rafael Police Department at 415-485-3000. April Zane went missing April 18, 1976, from Frankfort, Illinois, a small town outside of Chicago. She was just 16 years old. She may have actually disappeared April 18, 1977. It is, there was a discrepancy. She was actually walking to a friend's house when she disappeared. Some agencies say she was a chronic runaway because she would go to Chicago. Her family says she was not a runaway. That she went to Chicago to visit friends because that's where she had grown up and that's what she knew. But Chicago police had a very strict curfew for the teenagers at the time. And because she broke it, they called her a runaway. Here's a clip of her sister discussing this.
If you got caught out past curfew in Chicago, and you didn't live there, and the cops couldn't at least, because usually they'd have the courtesy of driving you home, whatever, you're considered runaway if you were out past curfew, especially if you came from a suburban area. So that's what usually happened, and our dad would have to get up, and he'd have to go get her, and it just was monotonous because she lost track of time.
Randy Parscale Jr. disappeared on April 7, 1979, from Oracle, Arizona. He was only 10 years old. He was last seen at a picnic and rock hunting excursion with his family in a place called Pepper Sauce Canyon. It's kind of a neat name. In the Santa Catalina Mountains of Arizona. His grandfather went to rest in the shade, and the boys continued running with their uncle. And when he ventured up a trail, Randy took a turn around a curve and was never seen again. For almost a week, hundreds of searchers on foot, horseback, helicopter, search dogs searched through the terrible terrain in the Catalina Mountains. An Oracle man who was part of the search actually died of a heart attack searching for the little boy. Shows you the dedication of some people. That's sad, but it's also moving that someone would, give their life, In 2010, theories about his disappearance, from kidnapping to falling down one of the old mine shafts that evidently litter the area, were bandied about. His mother believes he was abducted because a tracker who worked on the search followed Randy's footprints to a dirt road where it appeared he got into a vehicle. There are still people interested in this cold case. There's still promising leads, providing the potential for a more conclusive determination, his mother said. Since he disappeared, his father and both of his grandfathers have passed away without answers. Randy is one of only 11 southern Arizona children who are listed as missing. In 2011, it was stated that in 1985, a woman reported that she had found a dollar bill with the chilling phrase, "I'm alive in Phoenix, Arizona. Please help me, Randy Parscale." Randy's mom said the message was labeled a fraud. Later that same year in 2011, Pinal County Sheriff's Office detectives said they believed they were on the verge of solving the case, but they needed the public's help. Police never said why they thought they were on the verge of solving the case. In 2014, investigators said the tracks indeed were found, tire tracks were indeed found next to Randy's footprints, which was further led his family to believe he had been abducted. And his case is listed as a non-family abduction, not as lost and injured. If you have any information, you can call the Pinal County Sheriff's Office at 800-352-3796 or 520-866-5149. Blast from the past. This one's going way back. This is Barbara and Patricia Grimes. Barbara was 15 and Patricia was 13. They were abducted on December 28, 1956 in Chicago, Illinois, and found murdered January 22, 1957, also in Chicago. They were going out to see Love Me Tender, the Elvis Presley movie that night. They weren't the first set of children to be abducted and murdered in Chicago. going to see a movie during that time period. 3 little boys, Peterson and Shoe Esslers, were also abducted and murdered, and this case has a suspect that is linked to that case. There is a book about that case called 3 Missing Boys. It took over 40 years to solve that case. The last time the girls were seen for sure was at the theater when Patricia's friend Dorothy sat behind them for the movie. The sisters even stayed for the second film and were expected home around 11:45 that night. By 2:15 a.m., their mother became worried and called police and reported them missing. It touched off the biggest missing persons case in Chicago history, producing many reported sightings. It was initially thought they might have run away to Nashville to see Elvis Presley in concert. Elvis even spoke about this case. He said, and I quote, "If you are good Presley fans, you'll go home and ease your mother's worries." The girls were supposedly seen in the day between their abduction and when their bodies were found. This was later proved by the coroner's office to not be the case because they died within hours. Following a thaw and rain on January 22nd, a construction worker found the nude bodies of the girls. They had most likely been dumped there from a passing car. Barbara lay on her left side with her legs slightly drawn up toward her body, almost sounds like a fetal position, and Patricia lay on her back, covering her sister's head. Again, the autopsy showed that their last meal was what they had eaten the day they went missing. So they were either killed late on the 28th or early morning the 29th. Probably early morning the 29th if they didn't get out of the movie theater until 11:45. The best suspects in my opinion, are these two. Max Fleeg was a 17-year-old boy who later went to jail for the murder of a woman. He allegedly confessed to kidnapping the girls, but it was illegal to interrogate a minor at the time, so it was all thrown out as fruit of the poisonous tree. So it was all thrown out as what they call in legalese fruit of the poisonous tree. So, remember, he failed to poly, which, again, they weren't allowed to do. He's not as good a suspect as this next guy, Silas Jane. He was a stable owner who was related to the Peterson Shoe Essler murders from 1955, which they learned during the Helen Brock investigation. If you know anything about her, you know she owned a lot of horses. She was an heiress to a candy fortune, I think, and strangely disappeared. So, matter of fact, he was part of that case, him and his brother, through a man named Kenneth Hansen, who owned the Broken H stables nearby. Believe it or not, there were several stables in Chicago at that time. It sounds strange, but at that time, there were still several stables there. You don't think of horses running around Chicago. At least I don't. In Willow Springs area of Chicago at the time, and of the Grimes sisters' murders, which was 2 years after the Peterson Shoe Essler murders. They were 3 boys of similar age to the Grimes sisters. The only real difference in the 2 cases was that the boys' case was solved 40 years later and that they were boys. So I think Silas Jane might be ended up to his eyeballs. You can read the book, again, about the Peterson Shoe Essler case, 3 Missing Boys, by Detective James Jack, who actually worked the case. He takes you from the beginning all the way through to the end, and it's really a good and fast read. There was a lead in 2012. A little girl named Bonnie Lee Scott, who was 15, whose nude body was found by a group of Cub Scouts. How horrible. They're going to need counseling the rest of their lives. Became central to this case when the killer actually called Loretta Grimes, the mother of the Grimes sisters, and taunted her by telling her he had killed her daughters. He didn't, chances are. Nobody believes he did. Some people do things like that. They'll call the victims' families just to get attention. I don't understand it. I really don't. But in 2013, a retired police officer and a group of amateur sleuths are trying to solve the case. They would be online sleuths. People like web sleuths would be the ones doing that. And that's always great when you can get people together to do something like this, because their parents deserve answers why their two little girls aren't here. If you have any information, you can call the Chicago Police Department, 312-746-6000. Special feature case. This is a case from right here in Massachusetts, right over in Somerville. Deanna Cremens went missing on March 30th, 1995, and her remains were found March 31st, 1995, behind a senior housing complex. She was a student at Somerville High School. She volunteered at the Somerville Cable Access Television, so she's one of our own. Worked with third graders at the Child Development Program at her school, and she worked at Star Market. This was quite a girl. Again, she was found behind the senior housing project just 4 days after her 17th birthday. An autopsy revealed she had been strangled. Her murder remains unsolved. 3 men were named as persons of interest. Her boyfriend, a Somerville firefighter more than twice her age, said to have been fixated on her. Okay, that's creepy. And a third adult man later imprisoned at the Massachusetts Correctional Institution at Cedar Junction. But no charges were pressed against any of them because they just didn't have any evidence. In 2005, the Middlesex District Attorney Martha Coakley announced that new forensic evidence had been found with procedures unavailable in 1995, raising hope of progress in the case, but again, no charges were pressed. In 2009, the current Middlesex District Attorney, Jerry Leone, stated that the murder would be solved, but law enforcement needed witnesses who had remained silent all these years to come forward. The Kremen family erects a billboard each year since her death to offer a reward for information about the killer. At the bottom of this billboard, a quote reads, "You know what you did to me. How much longer must I wait? Please help make my time in heaven restful." The reward has grown from $10,000 in 1995 to $20,000 in 2005. It is now up to $70,000 because on March 31st, 2014, the mayor of Somerville announced a $50,000 reward to help find the people or person behind her murder. That's a lot of money from a city. There is also a Deanna Cremens Reward Scholarship of $500 given annually to one recipient currently attending the Child Development Program at Somerville High School, which she attended. I like to make these people real, and I want to give you a funny story that was related in one of the articles. Once when Deanna was a small child, her mother found her and her sister making chicken soup in the toilet. It has now been 20 years. It is time to give Catherine Kremen and her family answers and justice. If you have any information in this case, you can call the confidential tip line at 617-544-7167 or the Middlesex County District Attorney's Office at 617-679-6600 or the Somerville Police Department at 617-625-1600. One last thing I'd like to do is I'd like to give you a couple of websites. First, Missing April Zane, which I helped Sharon Rose create on Google Sites. Also, you can check out deannacremen.org or Friends of Deanna Kremen on Facebook. You can also check out April Rose on Facebook, April Rose Zane. So check out all those. We will see you next time. Thank you for joining us. God bless you. It's Good Friday as we speak, so I hope that by the time you've seen this, you've had a wonderful Easter weekend. God bless and good afternoon.